Hey guys and girls, Trigger John coming at you with another Awaken Chaos Era video. So on today's video, what we are going to be talking about is going to be a very hopefully short and discreet topic about gear and what you should be looking for on your gear sets. Also, what kind of things to look for when you're doing these PO3s to get your free 6-star gear pieces. Because I feel like a lot of people are really upgrading their gear to a high tier and level 15 gear, but they're really doing it on gear that isn't necessarily the most optimized pieces of gear. All right, so as you can see here, I do have my backpack showed up here. This is gonna be the gear that I currently have upgraded. I want you to notice I have a lot of pieces of gear. When I say a lot of pieces of gear, I mean I have a lot of pieces of gear. Granted, I have been farming. I've actually been saving this up for this video for, I don't know, I've probably been going for now 3 or 4 days without cleaning anything out, because what we're gonna do is I'm gonna first talk about stats on gear, what to focus on, and then I'm gonna record another video within the next day after I farm some more gear, and we're gonna break down the exact stats that you're looking for, min-max rolls, how much XP is required to go from all the different stages. So today's video, what we're really gonna break down and try to be the most efficient at is literally just explaining to you kind of what substats you're really looking for on pieces of gear, and giving you a few examples of pieces of gear that I have and that I've utilized. So that way you yourself can be a little bit more educated as far as, okay, what stats am I truly looking for and what I really want to do with this gear. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and cover what gear I have currently and how many pieces of gear that I actually have maxed out to 15. I just want you to take note of this really quickly. I am fairly in-game player. I haven't beat Void Tower hard yet, but it's not like I don't have the gear or the champions to be able to do it. We should hopefully do this on the stream. We got a little distracted with Lost Ark, but it's okay. We're gonna keep doing it and progressing our content. Don't worry about that. But as you see here, I have, what is this? 3, 6, 7, 14 pieces of gear that are maxed out to 15. And that's it. That's all I have. I've been playing this game since soft launch, day 1 of soft launch, and we are months and months into this. Like, you were what, at least 4 months into the game now. And I still have only 14 level 15 gears. So that should really tell you that you need to be picky. You need to watch what pieces of gear you're upgrading, and you need to look at the substats that are on the said pieces of gear. For example, this was a hard one right here to choose. So this is probably, well, not this one, sorry. Where's it at? This one here, that's the one I want, the Vanguard boots. Now these boots are normally, these would be 100% pass, but in this case, when I rolled them, they rolled 3 times in a row crit rate. I generally speaking, if it's a 6-star piece of gear, I will roll it up to 6 or 9 to see what it's gonna roll, if it has the right stats. And we're gonna talk about stats here in just 2 seconds, but I rolled this one 3 times to 12. I was feeling froggy. And I really just needed HP boots, to be quite honest. And I needed a little bit of crit rate at the time, and I got a triple roll. And I was like, oh, well, that's awesome. I was actually streaming during the middle of this. So then we were like, you know what, let's just take it all the way up to 15. And this is one of the first pieces of gear I took up to 15, and that's when I realized, oh man, this takes so many resources to get a piece of gear up to 15. Like, that's a lot of charms, that's a lot of pieces of gear that have to go back into themselves to upgrade to 15. But we took it all the way up to 15, and it rolled 2 more times on crit damage. Now, one thing I want you to take note of and think of in the back of your head is you need to always be conscious of what substats are on what set of gear. Now, I am a big believer in, yes, you do not have to have the perfect sets per character. You can have mixed sets. There's nothing wrong with mixed sets of gear on players. Notice like Zitlin, I don't have a designated like perfect set on him. Granted, yes, he's got Terra and he's got revival gear, but it's not really needed. But like Blackhorn, he's got only 1 piece of Terra, 1 piece of Raider, and then he's got mixed other stuff. Like, it's not the end of the world. Lydia, for example, too, once again, 1 set of Warrior and then Hodgepodge. You don't have to have the best sets on your characters. You can go with a mixed set as long as you have the stats that you're looking for. I will be the first one to advocate that, yes, that is correct. You don't need to go and say, okay, I need to make sure that I have the correct gear set on each character. Now, that does become important when you're trying to min-max. So, for example, as we get further into this, let's see if I can find the character I'm thinking of here. I'll know it when I see it. Okay, yeah, like Nathalia. Nathalia is one of those where, yes, you need to have a curse set on her, and ideally, instead of this warrior set, I have a guard set on her, and then she's good to go. That's one of those cases where some characters need to have a certain set gear on them. What that means is you need to make sure that if you know characters need a certain set of gear, you need to make sure you have the stats that back up and correlate with that type of gear with the type of character you're looking for. So for example, if I click on these boots, these are attack percent boots. This piece of gear was not worth a 15. 100%. And you can argue with me down in the comments down below all you want, but it's not worth it. It's attack percent. It rolled no crit rate, 1 time on crit damage, and defense plus resistance. Now, resistance, cool. Defense, not bad. I wasn't upset about this, but this is not the ideal piece of gear that you really want to be working with. Notice also the crit damage here. Now this piece, I was okay with this piece. This had a crit damage piece. It had 2 rolls on crit rate as it is. Attack, flat attack. That's terrible. We really should be looking for attack percent. It's a warrior set, okay? You don't want a warrior set piece of gear to have just all the HP defense percent on them. It's okay to have like HP, for example, but let's pull this up. Like, so if I were to hit manage gear here, let's see if I have any pieces, and we'll kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about. So let's say we have HP percent as our main stat. Let's see if we hide this. Do we have any pieces of gear here that I have not cleansed that would be terrible for, okay, let's switch this to say defensive percent here. Perfect. Now, these are defense percent rings for one. So one thing to note, rings are used for crit rate, crit damage on DPS units. On your support units, on your healers, you want usually HP. Now on certain characters like Charles, defensive scaling characters, you really want defense on every percent of gear here, okay? That's when I would say, yes, it's fine. But one thing to note here, and I want you to really take heart and note here, is that this is a warrior piece of gear with defense main, okay? Attack percent substat with precision and attack flat. Now, precision, yes, precision is nice. It's going to help with landing certain abilities. Is that worth it? Absolutely not. That's what I want to point out to you guys, is that you need to really think about, how do my pieces of gear synergize with their set, and how would I use that on a character? So I know some of you are going to go, well, why don't you just give me a list and tell me? I don't want to do that, because I do want you guys to all think and kind of use your own thought process on this, because it's going to help you in the long run. But I will give you tips and pointers. So for example, like, yes, warrior set, generally speaking, you're going to want only attack percent on any of your boots, your rings, your amulets. That's always pretty much 9 out of 10 times is going to be want to be attack percent. Maybe 1-2 pieces of HP here and there that have good substats that are like crit rate, crit damage. That's really about the only thing you're gonna need. Now, the change and the counter argument that can go with this is your bleed characters and your ignite characters, such as like Scarlet, Azarina. They proc certain abilities that need to scale with attack. So you really want them to scale with attack, and you want them to have HP percent and defense percent. That's when you're gonna go over here and you're gonna say your rings can be attack percent, but you're not gonna want these attack percent revival. You're not gonna want these attack percent rage. You're gonna want attack percent on attack stats here, maybe on curse set. That's about it. And that's what you need to think of when you're kind of looking at your pieces of gear, because gear is so expensive. I just wanna reiterate here, guys, I have 14 pieces of gear to 15, and out of these 14, not all of them were worthy. These were not the best pieces of gear. This one was okay because it had double crit rate. This one I justified because it was crit rate, crit damage, and then, you know, it's crit rate, crit damage, and then it rolled attack. It is what it is. This one here really was not worth it at all. Even this one here, the crit rate was nice 2 rolls on flat attack. That should have been a rip. This one right here has 2 flat stats to begin with. Instantly should have been a nope, this is not a piece of gear that needs to be invested in. This should have been just destroyed and done. But I kept it because at the time I was really desperate in gear. But notice it is only level 12 and it will never go above that because it has 2 rolls into flat stats. It has another flat stat on it. Not worth it, even the slightest. You have to be willing to take those pieces of gear and say, here's my threshold. Here's the content I want to beat. This is what I have to do. If you do not and are not willing to kind of sacrifice that at the beginning, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to overcome some certain obstacles, and you're going to waste a lot of pieces of gear. You're going to waste a lot of charms to upgrade these because they're not cheap. If I were to go upgrade, say I wanted to upgrade this chest piece, notice I have a crap load of gear here, right? It's not even like, it's not a little bit. There's a lot of gear there. If I were to take all of my 5 stars, okay, that's all the 5 stars I have that are blue. We haven't even made it to 13. Take all the purples, we made it to 13. Take all the blue 6 stars, still have not made it to 15. All the purples. Now it does stop here because it's getting close. I just want you guys to see the difference. Notice that it took almost all of my gear to upgrade this to 15, and that's just from 12 to 15. Look at all that gear we're sacrificing to get to this point. Now, and that's with a plus 12 right here. So if we were to take that out, look how far away we are. I want you to keep that in mind. Look at the amount of gear that I had to sacrifice to get one piece of gear from 12 to 15. That's why this is so important that you need to synergize this. If I were to take out all these pieces of gear, every piece of gear other than the one that was rolled up, even take a purple, if I were to use all these here, notice this is how much it would take to put this to level 15. And this is not a piece that's worth it. And this is 100% why. 2 rolls on a flat stat, 2 flat stats, instantly trash. Don't keep it, not worth your time. It's also, you know, it's one of those situations where I see this happen a lot, and I really, part of me dies a little bit inside every time I see it. And that's because I hate to see you guys wasting resources on upgrading pieces of gear that shouldn't be upgraded. This is another prime example, but I really needed attack for a comp to work with Afiliate, and I regret it. This is all pieces of gear that should not have been rolled up. It's not worth it. This one here, yes, this is perfect. It rolled 3 times on crit rate. At that point in time, it is what it is. I was happy with rolling this one all the way up because it had served its purpose. 3 of the stats were hit, targeted, and it has speed, resistance. You can't really go wrong with a piece of gear like this. But had I really taken the time to step back and look at my count more, I would have waited. I would not have taken these up there. I would have said, hey, you know what? This isn't worth it. I would have also said, you know what? These crit damage rings here. So let's go to crit damage rings for the main stat. These crit damage rings, they need to have crit rate. These plus 12s without crit rate are a waste. Chances are, if you are using a crit damage ring, you need crit rate still in your character. You still want to hit that crit cap. Crit damage, crit rate need to synergize very, very well in your DPS units. For the most part, everyone knows this, is aware of this, and that's great. But on pieces of gear like this invincible ring where you don't have any crit rate here, I have attack flat stat and HP flat stat. This is a rip, it's done. We're not gonna upgrade this any further. And that's because of this right here. 2 flat stats, and we have a percent on focus, which doesn't actually change the main stats of your character other than if they're a debuffer. There's not enough utility in here. Same thing with, you're not gonna use any ring that's not a 5-star or at least a 6-star ring for crit rate, crit damage. Do not upgrade your 5-star rings to 15. Don't do it. Don't upgrade your 5-star gear to 15. Notice that none of my 5-star gear is 15. Absolutely none of it. And there's a reason for that. It's not worth it. And really, most of my gear is not level 6 or not 6-star or above, or not, sorry, equal to 6-star at least. And that's because the gap between 5-star and 6-star gear is so massive that you need to be taking the time to really pay attention to what gear you have and owning what you have to upgrade it correctly. One last thing that we're going to cover for like 2 seconds before the end of this video is going to be your your PO3s, as we call them. This is going to be where you go in there, you get to do your one battle, you get to invite your friends to help you complete those battles. This gives you 6-star custom gear. It'll be a random set of gear. In this case, I have Dragon Scale available. I have Custom Warrior set. We're going to talk about this for literally like a minute, and that's going to be it. And what I'm going to point out to you is this. A lot of people, when they hit use, they want to go and they want to see, how many pieces of this do I have? How many pieces of this do I have? Like, okay, well, I'm lacking. So for example, I have 3 swords. Well, I have 2 rings and I have 4 amulets. So they would say, I'm going to take a ring because it's the least number that they have. Here's my take on this. The most valuable piece of gear in the game are your percent stat pieces of gear. Okay, your percent stat pieces of gear are your boots, your rings, and your amulets. Now, if you do not focus on these 3 stats, or these 3 pieces of gear, they will be your bottleneck for your gear. The stats that you're gonna get on swords, helms, and chest are not gonna be that great. You can't get speed on a helm and on a piece and on chest piece. You can get speed on a weapon though. You can get everything on these percent based here, okay? My best suggestion is if you are lacking in the DPS unit, you need to 9 out of 10 times go take this ring. And you wanna hope that you get a crit damage ring, that you get a massive HP ring, or even maybe an attack percent ring if you're running like a Scarlet, a Jake, well, mainly just a Scarlet comp, Azrina, or like a Bleeding Knight unit. That's my advice. That's what I tell you. That's what I'm telling you right now. I'm gonna take my own advice. I'm gonna use it as well. This is a warrior set. We're gonna see what we got. Okay, we got defense set, and we got 2 flat stats. This is trash. Hands down, it's trash. Defense main, attack percent sub, crit rate. Some people will say this is crit rate, we're gonna roll it. Do not roll that. This is trash. You have 2 flat stats, immediately done. I don't care what piece of gear it is. If this had crit damage with crit rate, 2 flat stats, done. Okay? I am lacking in the ring department. I'm gonna keep going and I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna hit another ring. Did I get lucky? No, I got attack percent with 3 flat stats. It was a gamble. But you know what? At the end of the day, this did not cost me as much resources as it would have if I had farmed in a dungeon. By farming in the dungeon to get my guaranteed, gear, which is going to be 5-star, 6-star, I would have farmed forever to get a 6-star piece of gear that I would actually use for a ring here or an amulet or a boot. Why waste your resources trying to pull these top 3 when these bottom 3 are going to be the rarest and most impactful on your account? That's the takeaway on this. I want you guys to really think about that and pay attention to that. It's worth it to go ahead and use those for your PO3s. But that's going to be it for today's video. I hope that helped you. I hope that alleviated a little bit of your worries, concerns, or thoughts on gear. I will do another video in the next 2 or 3 days that I really do a full gear cleanse on my account. And as I'm doing the gear cleanse, I'm going to note and dictate, okay, this is what stats we're going to be looking on this piece of gear. This is how far we're going to upgrade it. This is how much it's going to take to upgrade it. And we're really going to do a deep dive into the math behind the mechanics so that way you know exactly what kind of resources that are going to be needed. But yeah, guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.